right, I think we're live on all three platforms. We've got 2 Facebook Lives going and we've got the TikTok Live. So welcome everyone. If this is your first time joining or you're joining in, make sure you type in #live if you're on Facebook, and if you're on TikTok, tap the screen, share the live. We've got a very interesting topic tonight, and I'm going to share from my personal experience some things that I've used to help deal with suicidal thoughts and depression without using drugs, alcohol, or medications. So these are tools that I've used. I speak from my own personal experience. I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any of that kind of licensing. This is my own personal experience. When I was 17, I had a suicide attempt, and fortunately it failed, and I'm still here today, many years later. But I learned how to navigate these emotions that come up, and from time to time, these dark whispers come back. And so I thought it would be good to share with you guys, especially since I was experiencing this earlier this week, and it's because I'm doing some deeper healing work, some shadow work, and I think a lot of those emotions kind of came up. So I'm going to share with you tonight 7 things that I do when these feelings come up, and we're going to dive in a bit deeper so that you can have a better understanding of what happens behind the scenes, what you can anticipate, so that you actually do not take action on these things, okay? This is very, very important. Do not take action, and if you are feeling that and it's been consistent and persistent, please make sure you reach out for help and contact your local suicide hotline to make sure that you live another day, that you don't take a permanent action on a temporary emotion. And having battled this many, many times over, I can promise you, if you sit with these feelings, you will get through them. They will pass, even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment, okay? So the very first thing that I do, I comfort myself and I sit with my feelings. Sorry, switching this around on TikTok, so let's reverse. There you go. Now the writing isn't backwards, so you could see. So what do I mean by comfort yourself and sit with the feelings? So this could be putting on comfortable clothes. This could be grabbing your favorite blanket, curling up on the couch or in your chair. There have been times where it got pretty extreme and I just needed to feel like I was cocooned. So the only place that I could do that was in the floor of my bedroom closet. And so I sat on the floor of my bedroom closet until I could let those feelings pass and know that I would not act, because when those emotions come up, when they do strike, they are very, very intense. If you haven't experienced this, I'm glad that you haven't, and at least sharing my experience will help give you some insight for somebody that you might know that might be going through these things. So when those feelings were really, really intense, I will comfort myself. So for me, a lot of times this also involves sitting on my hands. That is or putting them down by my side so that I don't take any action. It's a physical reminder for me not to take any action, that I just have to sit with this and almost white knuckle it through, so that knowing full well that these will pass. It's not going to stay. It's not going to be something that I act on. Having done that, and I know what it feels like on the other side, you feel like a complete idiot. You feel worse than what you were feeling before, and the amount of shame and guilt and remorse that you have. Gratitude as well that you're still here, but you don't feel like it at the time, and it wasn't a very happy, fun time when that happened. So, number 1, comfort yourself and sit with your feelings. you don't want to block them. They are messages that are coming up for you. They're things that you need to look at and really pay attention to what's going on. Trying to numb them with drugs or alcohol, medications. If you take medications, please follow your physician's advice. I personally don't. I don't feel I need them. I feel that this method works best for me. So you can try it and see if it works for you. So the second thing that I do is when those feelings are so intense, those ongoing voices get loud, okay? And I know this seems really weird to talk about the voices in your head, but it's the messages that you hear, right? Pay attention, let them flow, don't try to stop them. Just pay attention and observe them. It's like stepping back and observing the negative thoughts that are coming through. They might be telling you that you're worthless, that your feelings don't matter, that you never do anything right. Whatever, I can promise you it's probably really critical, whatever it is that's going on, if you're having those depressive or suicidal thoughts. Pay attention to them, listen. And I want you to listen for whose voice does it sound like? Who has talked to you using those words? Whatever it is that's going on for you. Who from your past? And maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a friend, a spouse, whatever it was. Pay attention to whose voice is that in. Maybe it's more than one person that's told you that. And it just feels like this bombardment of, you're not going to be good enough, you're terrible, blah, 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 whatever the narrative is, it doesn't really matter. Understanding what circumstances and what situations have you previously experienced those things, and know that those are all shadows from the past. They cannot hurt you. You can pay attention to them, you can listen. I'm sorry to hear that. So you can listen and pay attention to what situations and circumstances have created those kind of things. Feeling sad and lonely can definitely be something that is, when I get feeling that way, when I get feeling that sadness and that loneliness, it's usually because I've got expectations about things should be different than what they are right now. And knowing that they're not that way right now and accepting that this is exactly the way it needs to be, it may bring up different feelings, but much more empowering feelings. Usually anger, right? It's like, you know, if you're feeling sad and you're feeling lonely and you're like, I'm never going to find somebody, my life's over, blah, blah, blah. You're feeling that depressive, sad feeling. And you're going through that. If you say that to yourself in that moment that, well, this is just the way that it's supposed to be, and that might bring up anger, it might bring up frustration, and it might be like, you know, but that's a much more powerful vibration than sadness and depression and like shame and guilt and all those kind of things. So it at least elevates your energy a little bit more. Now, you also still don't want to act on it. You want to try and comfort yourself. You want to listen to what critical voices are happening, who in your past has said those kind of things to you, and what kind of situations and circumstances have you previously been in. Where is this coming from in your past? Because here's the thing that I want you to really, really pay attention to. These aren't your words. They aren't your thoughts. They are thoughts and words that have been planted there by somebody else. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Those suicidal thoughts, those depressive thoughts, they're not your thoughts. They are thoughts that have been planted by somebody else. And the problem is you are agreeing with those negative criticisms, those negative assessments of you. Maybe it was a parent that always told you you're stupid or you're clumsy or you're dumb and you can't do anything right, whatever it is, and you find yourself that maybe something happened and you made a mistake and now it's triggered this avalanche of all these negative criticisms. These still are not your thoughts. They are programming that's been put into you that you can change the coding on. It's not hard-coded. That's what I really want you to understand. So being able to pay attention to these things, listen to the words that are coming out, what the different voices, different people that have said it to, what kind of circumstances were those, and what has been similar. And when you start being able to just observe, because remember, you're sitting on your hands at this point. You're not moving, you're listening, you're paying attention to what's going on, right? The third thing that I will do is I will start to journal. And I do this in a conversation kind of thing. And part of this has come from the fact that I've been able to cultivate a healthy inner friend that protects me, that will ask questions. And it's because I've been through a lot of therapy, more than 10 years of therapy I've had, and in many, many different formats. So I've had a lot of examples of how to counteract that negative self-talk. I had to be shown that I had to have somebody tell me, hey, that's not true. Like, you're being really hard on yourself. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know that, because, I mean, I've always been told these things, so they must be true, right? Especially if those things come from multiple people. But the thing is multiple people can still be wrong, and that can still not be true. And if it is true, then that's even better, because that means you can actually do something about it. You can actually change it. So it puts you in a place of feeling helpless and out of control to putting you in a place where you actually feel like you are more empowered, that you can do something about it, right? Because if you know yourself that this is something that you did that you can correct, then you will make the adjustments. Now, if you don't know what it is that you need to do, that's a little bit of a different story, and that requires a little bit more digging. But going through journaling actually helps. So now, when you're journaling, don't try to do perfect sentences, write all over the place if you have to, write one word, because I know a lot of times when I'm going through this, the thoughts just flow so quickly that it's hard to make them a little bit coherent. But I will write a little thing down. I'll write like one image or something like that, I'll remember somebody's name, it was a friend from school, or it was this situation or that situation. I'll write down those kind of little details. And then I'll learn to start talking back to that of why it's not true, or asking more questions, right? So I'll ask myself questions. Learning to love myself is hands down the hardest thing I've ever done, making great progress. That is so true, Maggie. I am so glad to hear you're making progress, and it is an ongoing thing. And that's the problem, is when you start doing some of this inner work, you start realizing that there might have been gaps. And I'm not trying to blame parents. I'm not trying to do any of that kind of stuff. I don't think that is overall beneficial, other than maybe the initial time. Or especially if you're taking all the responsibility on yourself and not, like if you're assuming that, well, I was a bad kid, so therefore it was okay that they hit me, they beat me, they did this, or whatever, those kind of things. And the reason that we get that way is because we weren't shown, we weren't modeled a good demonstration. We weren't taught how to love ourselves, how to value ourselves. So having to do this at whatever stage in life that you're at. And there's different layers that come up. So I thought it was great with self-love and confidence and all that kind of stuff until about 3 years ago, and then a whole bunch of stuff happened. And I've been on this renewal of the healing journey and having to pull out some of the old tools that I used. And guess what? these still work. So these things that I'm sharing, they saved my life. I'm still here. That's proof that it works. Okay. So journaling, writing the stuff out and having the conversation back and forth. So because a lot of times our negative voice, our suicidal thoughts, our depression, that kind of stuff will come across as statements. It'll say things as if they're facts. And having an alternate voice to write out questions as to, well, why do you feel that way? Or, where is this coming from? Can you tell me more? Is that everything? Or do you feel like there's more that you need to say, right? And just allow yourself to purge that out and get that all down. Now, if you're afraid of writing that stuff down, it is so important to make sure it is no holds barred. So if you are like, you know what, you're complaining, you're bitching, you're going on, and you want to say all these nasty things, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your boss, whatever it is, you need to rage that out. And rage is just uncontrollable hurt, okay? So if you've gotten to that point where you feel that inside, getting that out of your system and doing it in a safe way that you're not harming anybody else, you're not harming yourself, and you're able to write that stuff down. If you want, burn it afterwards, get rid of it, destroy it, whatever you have to do so that you don't hang on to those emotions, and get those out of your system. And the other thing that journaling does is it gives you a visual representation. So this is why it's even more powerful to make sure that you are writing down and self-soothing as you go, right? Counteracting the lies, because those statements, those critical statements that are stated as if they're true, they're not true, right? Even if you did screw something up, you're not the worst person in the world. Even if you hurt somebody, you are still worthy of love, right? And so when you know that truth and you've had somebody model that for you, and if you haven't had somebody model that for you, what I want you to do is imagine, how would I talk to somebody I loved? How would I talk to my best friend? What would be the things that I would say to encourage them? And so what it does is it externalizes it, and then as you write, it also gives you a visual representation. So it feeds that back, so the next time these negative voices come up, you now also not only have something that you've practiced combating those negative voices, but you also have a visual written way of combating those voices, right? So I journal since I was a young girl. Excellent way to see your progress. Thank you, Maggie. So journaling, so important, and so important to do it no holds barred. Really getting out those nasty things. I remember one time I did that exercise, and I was complaining, I was saying all these nasty things about a friend of mine, and I was just like, bleh, terrible stuff that I would never ever say out loud, but I was just getting it out. And the funny thing is as I was going through the journaling process, I switched from her name to my name, and it started becoming iMessages, and I was like, oh, that judgment, that criticism, that hate, that terrible feelings that I was having really had nothing to do with her and had everything to do with me. So when we're pointing the finger going, you did this, you did that, you're terrible, right? We got three fingers pointing back at us. So we're the problem, we're also the solution. So, and I know that gets short-formed a lot these days, and it doesn't feel helpful when you're going through it. So, but know that getting that stuff out, blaming and bitching and complaining and just being nasty about things, first of all, don't do it out loud to somebody. Don't yell at them. Don't put them down. Don't belittle them. Don't continue the cycle of abuse. You want to stop the cycle of abuse. This is why journaling is a much better alternative. and making sure that you can get that out so that you don't harm anybody in the process. When you do that, now you can take a look at it, and instead of it being judgments against other people, you now sign your name. These are things that you need to work on, and things that you need to correct those behaviors. I promise you, if you do that, even if the other person doesn't change a damn thing about themselves, they can still continue their shitty behavior. It won't affect you anymore, because the problem of why it hurts, why these things cause us pain, is that on some level we agree with what was done, right? We agree with the assessment. We agree that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy, that our feelings don't matter, right? If someone triggers you, it's hard. It's a hard lesson, yes. Justified anger is a different matter. I'm not saying don't ever get angry, because I've been guilty of that as well. And that is actually what will lead to you feeling depressed, right? Because depression is anger that should have been expressed outward, and it got turned inward into criticism and self-judgment and self-loathing. And that's where the depression comes from. And when you start to dig through what's going on with this depression, you realize it's anger that was not expressed. And I can promise you, if you have any excess weight on you, you have stored anger within you. And oftentimes, as you go through a weight loss journey, as you're starting to break down those cells, those emotions start to come up too. And I'm sure there's probably some science behind that. But this is my interpretation. These are my experiences that I'm sharing. I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. This is what has served me and helped me deal with my depression, deal with my suicidal thoughts without any drugs, alcohol, or medication. This is my personal experience, and I'm sharing that in hopes that it helps somebody else. Okay? So, number 4, after you do journaling, I want you to, let me just take a sip here. I want you to feel the energy in your body. So when you have these thoughts, and especially if you're now starting to take and pay attention to the negative, critical, negative thinking that's happening, you will feel all of this energy, especially if you're not allowing yourself to move. You're under your blanket, you're sitting in your chair or on the couch, sitting on your hands, not moving, and you feel like you should take some action, but you're not. So it's like revving the engine, but you have the parking brake on. You can't move forward. You're going to sit with these emotions and really feel them, knowing that they can't actually hurt you, that you can't act on them. You're just going to sit there and feel them and know that it can't actually harm you, okay? It's only when we start to believe the lies enough that we end up taking action on it. And I know what that feels like, and it's not a good feeling, right? So do not take that action. Sit on your hands. Feel that energy build up, okay? And especially as you're tapping into it, because it's going to shift from that powerless feeling that you have no control over your life. And if you start looking at where did those negative voices come from, and where did those circumstances and situations, and how are they similar, and when you start journaling out what it is that you're actually feeling, you're now going to elevate from those lower vibration energies to that higher vibration. And I want you to pay attention to that, because that is a sign that you are alive, and that part of you actually wants to fight, that doesn't want to die, that does want a better life, right? So knowing that that energy is there, and if you are taking the time to do self-care for yourself and counteract those negative voices. I know when I was doing some journaling, when I let that negative part just have that free avalanche of negative voices, and I keep asking, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Have you said everything that you wanted to say? And not interrupt or not try to change it, and just accept it. When we accept it, we can actually shift it a lot faster, because once that, because that voice is always really high volume, it's really loud. When it got to, it had said everything that it needed to say, the next voice out was the little girl inside of me that was like, but that's not fair. You're being really mean, right? So, and that's not true, right? And so it was a very soft, and that's where we get to that inner child piece of, because imagine all of those negative, critical things. Imagine yourself as a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and you are that adult, and you are screaming this stuff at that 3-year-old, 4-year-old version of yourself. And get a picture of yourself as a baby, as a child, and imagine that you are talking to that child that way. So this is where you can, I jumped ahead to the 6th one, which is soothe the inner child, right? So, but that voice came out naturally because of allowing those negative thoughts to flow out and the journaling, right? During this whole time, I also am doing breathing. So, and what that is for me, now some people will use box breathing. I usually just do a deep inhale in and a slow exhale out. The whole goal is to slow the pace of my breathing, because when I'm in this situation, I'm in a fight or flight, especially if you're having suicidal thoughts. You are in fight or flight mode. You've been triggered. You need to breathe to get more oxygen to your brain to calm the vagus nerve and calm you down. So breathing in slowly, holding your breath, and releasing it slowly, doing that multiple times over, you will feel yourself physically calming down. And I also do this where as I'm doing that, it's like I kind of push my shoulders down a little bit, because I'm still in the chair and I'm still sitting on my hands, so I just kind of physically try to get my shoulders to relax a little bit. And that helps a lot. So this also ties into feeling the energy in your body, and as you're breathing, as you're releasing that stuff, it helps calm you down, and it gives you this sense of you're going to be okay, right? So soothe your inner child is the next one. So once you've gotten to this point, you're going to want to check in with yourself and ask, what is it that you need? Maybe you want to go outside. Maybe you want to play video games. Maybe you want to have an ice cream cone, or, you know, a treat or something like that, or you want to go for a walk. Whatever it is, give that inner child part of you that recognition that they just went through something really, really challenging, and comfort them as if you would a child who just had a really bad day at school. And nothing you can say is really going to actually change it, but what you can do is give them something to distract them. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to, you don't give children alcohol, typically. It's not a good thing. And you want to make sure that you don't give them alcohol, drugs, or just randomly give them some sort of medication, right? You want to give them something that is good, that will nourish them, that will give yourself something good, that will nourish you, that will comfort you, and make you feel loved, okay? So that could be through food, that could be through a physical activity, that could be playing your favorite game, putting on your music, whatever it is. painting a picture, I do lots of artwork. So those are kind of things that I do to kind of help move me through. The last thing, and it can also be the first thing, and I do this, there we go, and I'm completely in the way. So pray. Pray and ask for prayer. Now, I have not been the most religious person. I am not very religious, more spiritual, and I used to fight it quite a bit. So if you have a problem, it's like, I'm not a praying person, Tina. I double dog dare you, okay? Just, even if you're not a believer, just say, you know what, I don't know what to say. I just need some friggin' help here, right? Swear if you have to. I've done that in my prayers before as well, is that I'll swear. Guess what? God can handle it. He can take it. And you're not doing anything he hasn't already seen. So it doesn't matter. Talk to him as if he was your best friend, or whatever your faith is, whatever it is that you believe. Pray and just ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for relief, ask for a sign, whatever it is that will help get you through these emotions, so that you don't act on those thoughts, okay? Because they're not facts, they're not real, and they will pass. You're just going through a storm, and you will get through it. And you don't try to stop the storm, you don't try to change the storm. You just have to weather the storm, and doing that by sitting on your hands, doing these steps, helps mitigate those challenges that you have, and then just asking for help. So I do that through prayer, I do that by asking for prayer, and I will do that for reaching out. But I've been through this so many times before now, I know how to walk myself through this. And these are the tools, and like I had said earlier, these are the tools that I actually use. And I actually used these earlier this week because of some of the healing work that I was doing. And I had a bunch of old stuff come up to the surface. And it's okay. The past can't hurt you. It's already done the damage. And the fact that this stuff is coming up is so that you can actually release it, so it no longer has control over your life. So running from this, hiding from this, using drugs, alcohol, or medications to numb it doesn't actually solve the problem. It just delays when you're going to deal with it. So being able to deal with this head on, face first, and be able to use these tools that I've mentioned, and if you've jumped in partway, then I recommend you do two things. Join my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125. Click on the subscribe button. You'll get notified when I've uploaded the replay of the video. And you can also go to my private Facebook group, which is The Happiness Coach. And my name is Tina Balmer, and you want to join that group. Make sure that you read all the rules and you answer all the questions. I'm being very selective as to who gets in that group, and I want to make sure it's a safe place for people to be able to share and get free training on personal happiness. And so that is what the training is for today. And as you can see, these tools were very effective, because when I was having those thoughts earlier this week, I'm still here. So it is a good day, and I'm feeling much better, and it was just a temporary thing, and it wasn't even a couple of hours, but those couple of hours can have drastic results if you take action on those things, and you don't want to do that, okay? So if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts and ongoing depression, and you feel you need help, I highly recommend therapy. I highly recommend getting a hold of your local suicide hotline. You can just do a Google search for that, and there's free resources for you if you cannot get a hold of any therapist or anything like that. Get on a wait list. It is the best thing I ever did in my life, was have therapy. Like I said, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach, and I do help people by sharing my own personal experience, and I do that for free in my Facebook group. And yeah, so that is the training for today. I hope you found this helpful. Share, subscribe, and let people know about the training, and check out, I've got more than 150 videos on YouTube, so hopefully there's something there that will help you. So have a great night, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye.